Song of Solomon, chapter 8. And this will be we'll do all of that chapter, and that'll be our last sermon in Song of Solomon, because the book will be completed. So Song of Solomon 8, and starting in verse 1. It says, "Oh, that you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breasts. If I found you outside, I would kiss you, and none would despise me. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother, she who used to teach me. I would give you spiced wine to drink from the juice of my pomegranate. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Who is it that coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? Under the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you. There she who bore you was in labor. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death. Jealousy is fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. We have a little sister, and she has no breasts. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build on her a battlement of silver, but if she is a door, we will enclose her with boards of cedar. I was a wall, and my breasts were like towers. Then I was in his eyes as one who finds peace. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal-Hamon. He let out the vineyards to keepers. Each one was to bring for its fruit 1,000 pieces of silver. My vineyard, my very own, is before me. You, O Solomon, may have the 1,000, and the keepers of the fruit 200. O you who dwell in the gardens, with companions listening for your voice, let me hear it. Make haste, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountain of spices." So I want you to see first that you should long for a deep relationship with your mate. And we see that in verses 1 through 6. Now, it sounds a little weird when you first start reading this, because she says, "I wish that you were like my brother, because then I could go outside and kiss you and nobody would think anything of it." We would kind of think something of that, wouldn't we? And they would have thought something of that back then. I mean, if you look in the laws of Moses, that was something. You were not to marry your brother or your sister. You weren't to marry your mother-in-law or your father-in-law. You weren't those kind of things. There were rules against incest. So I don't think that is what Solomon's getting here, and I don't think that's what Shulamite is getting here, that she's saying, "I wish my husband was my brother," in that regard, and that we shared a mother. That's not at all what she's talking about. I think she's talking about that closeness. She says, "I want you to be like we're family, like we're that close, like we've been together the whole time, like our whole lives. Every time that our hearts have beat, they have beat in unison. Every time that we take a breath in, we're both taking a breath in, and we're both exhaling at the same time, that we could be together like that, and that we would be in that kind of relationship that would be so deep, that it would be as deep as like we were twins, that we would be one in the same." And here you see that she goes on to talk about the closeness that they have with his left hand under her head and his right hand embracing her. That it's just a very close. You can't do that to somebody without getting close to them, right? Talking about their closeness and how close that they get. She's longing for a deep relationship, and we should long for a deep relationship too. If you just have a surface relationship, whether it's with a friend or whether it's with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whether it's with a spouse, if you just have that surface relationship, that's not the kind of relationship that can stand the test of time. You need to have a deeper relationship than that. And then you need to use it in the right way. Martha and I feel like have a pretty deep relationship. We know each other pretty well. And that can lead to good things because we know what each other likes, and we know what each other dislikes. And then also on the few times, about once a decade, that we decide that we're going to have a fight. When we do, we know exactly what buttons to push to set the other person off, right? If your relationship gets to that point, right, you know the nuclear codes to be able to launch those missiles. You don't have to be, around each other too long to understand that and know that. So, but we should long for that deep relationship. We should long to know what it makes the other person in our life tick. Number 2, coming from verse 7, you can't buy love. You can't buy love. It says, waters cannot quench love, and neither can floods drown it. Love stands through that. What is it we learned in 1 Corinthians 13? All those things. But if you don't have love, then none of that matters. And he says at the end, love never fails. Love never fails. You can't wash over love. You can't flood out love. And you can't buy love. It says, if a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. If you came in and thought you could buy love. You ever listen to the radio and hear the commercials, and there's this one about, I think his name's Big Lou, that you can call to get insurance. And he says, it's like, this is the way it talks, but it's like, so you're on wife number 3 and you're 60 years old and she wants you to get an even bigger life insurance policy than you had to get for wife number 2. And it says, you should buy it from Big Lou because he's like you, except he's only on number 2. And that's what it says, and it's trying to sell you that life insurance. And, you can't buy love. You can't buy love. And, you'll see these people you ever saw, they talk about them being trophy wives, where there's a woman that's 50 years younger than the billionaire that they've got married. Some people say that maybe Donald Trump and Melania were kind of like that. I don't think they're, I don't know. I mean, they seem to really care for each other. But I've seen a lot of other ones where you're just like, so this guy's like 85 and he marries a 21-year-old. I don't know if love is the thing that I would describe that as, because you can't buy love. I think a lot of times we found, and maybe y'all have seen this in your life, it was at the time when it was the hardest time that you felt the love the most. When you didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. That's when you felt the love the most. Because you're like, I don't have anything but her, or I don't have anything but him. That's it. Because I don't have anything else to do. You can't buy love. You can't buy love, and you can't buy the happiness that comes from it. And then third, in verses 8 through 14, we can't let our love be secret. Talking about the things that we see on the outside, right? We don't want our love to be a secret. We don't want it to be where nobody knows that I've got a wife. I mean, it'd be amazing. I've met people like that before, and I've known them for 5 or 6 years, and then I find out that they've been married for 20 years. After knowing them for 5 or 6 years and just didn't know, because it's not out there. It doesn't take people very long to know that I'm married, and I know with y'all, it doesn't take very long for y'all to talk about the ones that you love. We can't let our love be secret. It is there. It's like that vineyard that everybody can see and to come and get its fruit and see it. They can come and look at it. They can come and take a tour of the love that we show. And so we don't need to let our love be in secret. Well, how do we apply that then as the church? I think first, we need to long for a deep relationship with Jesus. Something more than just on the surface. We really need to take the time to get to know Jesus and to know Him well. And how do we do that? We do that through studying His Word, and we do that through prayer. And I think that is a very important thing. And too often people will say, I just don't feel like I've got that relationship that I should have with Jesus. Why does it feel like God is so far away from me? And I think usually when that happens, you can ask, well, how long has it been since you've spent some time reading God's Word? Well, it's been a little while. Or how long has it been since you really had a time of dedicated prayer? And well, it's been a while. And that's the way that we can grow that relationship with Him. You grow relationships by spending time with people. The things that I know about Martha and the things she knows about me, if we never spent any time together, we would have never got a chance to know that. And so we have to spend that time with Jesus to develop that deep relationship that we should all long for. Number 2, don't try to buy Jesus' love. Often we'll do that. We'll say, well, rather than doing this, I'll put a little extra in the offering plate or something like that. We can't do that. We can't buy Jesus' love. How much money do you think Jesus needs? He doesn't need any. He's already got everything. You can't impress Him with money. Bill Gates could go up to Jesus and say, I want to give you enough money to impress you. And you know what Jesus would say is, I don't need any of it, right? Oh, you have $7 billion, or you have $70 billion, or you have $700 billion, or you end up being the first trillionaire in the world. Well, He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And the stuff that you have, the concrete you have, is nothing compared to His concrete, because it would take all the gold in the world to make the streets that He's going to make out of gold in heaven. He doesn't need your money. And you can't buy His love. Can't buy His love. Instead, you develop that relationship with Him. And then finally, don't let your love for Him be secret. We can't take Jesus and hide Him away and not want to share Him with anybody else. And we can't let our love for Him be secret. We have to be willing to share with others the love that we have for Jesus Christ, and it needs to be evident in the way that we live our lives. We can't be angry all the time, or we can't be distressed all the time. We have to let that joy that we have and the love for Him show it. And sometimes the way that we show that the most is through the most difficult of times. It's somebody that stands strong and has Jesus comfort them through the tough times that people see, and then they realize, hey, I want what they want, because they could make it through that tough time. And there's things that we've all gone through in our life that, but for the grace of Jesus, we would have never made it. And it's okay to wear our faith on our sleeve. Maybe, you ever heard anybody say, well, they're just a Bible thumper. They're a Bible thumper, or they're one of those born-again Christians. Well, I hope that's the way people insult me. I hope they insult me by calling me a born-again Christian. I hope they insult me by calling me a Bible thumper, because, although I don't really thump my Bible that much, or thump it like this. But, I believe it. I believe it to be true, and I believe it to be God's love letter that He wrote to us, so that we could have that deep relationship with Him. And that's why I think it's so important that we study it, and then it's so important that we share it. We share it with others, because we can't let our love for Him be secret. So long for a deep relationship with Jesus. Don't try to buy Jesus' love, and don't let your love for Him be secret. We can't buy His love. We can't earn His love. We get it by grace. And we can show that grace to others in the way that we live for Him. Any comments or questions on that?